Homage to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Today we're looking at the question of who benefits from our spiritual practice. This is quite an interesting question, particularly when we delve into the Buddha's teachings and what he has to say on this subject. There are a number of suttas set out in Asuravagga in chapter 4 of Anguttara Nikaya that we can examine, as well as other suttas scattered throughout the Sutta Pitaka. In Asuravagga, the Buddha talks about 4 kinds of persons found in the world. The first one is one who is practicing neither for their own benefit nor for the benefit of others. Nevattahitāya, paṭipanno, no parahitāya. The second is one who is practicing for the benefit of others but not for their own benefit. Parahitāya, paṭipanno, no attahitāya. And the third is one who is practicing for their own benefit and not for the benefit of others. Attahitāya, paṭipanno, no parahitāya. And lastly, one who is practicing both for their own benefit and for the benefit of others. Attahitāya, ceva, paṭipanno, parahitāya cha. The Buddha is giving us a few different permutations to consider when it comes to how we practice. And there is a scale in terms of those 4 kinds of persons. The person who is practicing neither for their own benefit nor for the benefit of others is at the lowest end of the scale. Although they undertake spiritual practice, it is of no benefit to themselves nor to others. Despite their efforts towards Dhamma, they are not making progress in Dhamma, nor are they able to encourage anyone else. The Buddha says the person who practices to benefit others but not themselves is better than that. And then interestingly, the Buddha then says the person who practices to benefit themselves but not others is better than both of those. Now some of us may wonder, why is practicing for the benefit of oneself better than practicing for the benefit of others? Wouldn't it be the other way around? We're going to look into the reasoning behind the Buddha's rankings. And finally, as we would expect, the Buddha says the person who practices to benefit both themselves and others ranks the highest. The Buddha says that this final person is the foremost, best, chief, highest, and finest of the 4. And we can see that the Buddha himself falls into this last category of persons, as do the noble arahants and other disciples of the Buddha. So we're going to delve into these suttas and examine in more detail each of these kinds of persons, the similes that the Buddha gives in some cases, and to try to understand what the Buddha means in terms of ranking these persons in this way, particularly the middle 2. And hopefully what we learn from this will assist each of us in our spiritual development and progress on the Noble Eightfold Path. So let's begin. We're going to look at the cross-section of suttas in the Asuravagga as we look at each kind of person. The first person that we can look at is the one who is practicing neither for their own benefit nor for the benefit of others. The Buddha gives us this simile. He says, suppose there was a firebrand for lighting a funeral pyre, burning at both ends and smeared with dung in the middle. It couldn't be used as timber, either in the village or the wilderness. The person who practices to benefit neither themselves nor others is like this, I say. If we contemplate this simile, it's apparent that this firebrand that is burning at both ends with dung smeared in the middle is not fit for purpose. It cannot be used to build or develop anything. Likewise, this kind of person who practices the Dhamma is not undertaking anything that will benefit themselves nor others. Their spiritual practice is lacking and is not fit for purpose. In the Raga Vinaya Sutta, the Buddha adds, here some person does not practice to remove their own lust, hatred, and delusion, nor do they encourage others to remove their lust, hatred, and delusion. Effectively, the Buddha is telling us that this kind of person is not developing and making progress towards the non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion path. One could infer that such a person is still cultivating the greed, hatred, and delusion path within their spiritual practice. As an example, one could continue to breed mental defilements such as covetousness, ill will, anger, and envy, and so on, those that are rooted in greed, hatred, and delusion, and they don't understand, and therefore they don't see the need to remove or abandon these mental defilements. As a result, this person will remain bound to samsara and the whole mass of suffering. The Buddha gives us a little more in the Kipanasanti Sutta. The Buddha says here, some person is not quick in attending to wholesome teachings, is unable to retain in mind the teachings he has heard, and does not examine the meaning of the teachings he has retained. Having no understanding of the meaning and the Dhamma, he does not practice in accordance with the Dhamma. Moreover, he is not a good speaker with a good delivery. He is not gifted with speech that is polished, clear, articulate, expressive of the meaning, and he does not instruct, encourage and inspire and gladden his monks. We get a lot from the Buddha's explanation here, particularly more to add to our definition of what it means to be of benefit to oneself and benefit to others. To benefit oneself, one needs to be quick to attend to wholesome teachings, needs to retain what one has heard, examines the meaning of what one has heard, and is able to practice in accordance with the Dhamma, having understood the meaning and the Dhamma. To be of benefit to others, one needs to be a good speaker with good delivery, gifted with speech that has the qualities that convey the Dhamma and the meaning of the Dhamma, and instructs, encourages, and inspires and gladdens other people. Now, this first person that we're looking at has none of these qualities, and therefore their practice neither benefits themselves nor others. Then we have the Sikkhapada Sutta. Here the Buddha states that a person who does not keep the 5 precepts, that is, they kill living beings, take what is not given, undertake sexual misconduct, false speech, and indulges in intoxicants. Therefore, they don't keep the 5 precepts, and neither do they encourage others to keep the 5 precepts. This is where we see the intersection with the earlier sutta, the Raga Vinaya Sutta. Because when we don't make effort to keep the 5 precepts or see the merit in refraining from unwholesome conduct, then we continue to walk the greed, hate, and delusion path, not the non-greed, non-hate, and non-delusion path. What we can see from these qualities or characteristics that the Buddha is highlighting for a person whose spiritual practice does not benefit themselves nor others is that they are in an unfortunate position. Their spiritual practice is not leaning towards the wholesome path, and certainly not leaning towards Nibbana. If they are not keeping the 5 precepts and not refraining from the unwholesome, then it adds up to a bit of a tragedy, as they still remain bound to samsara, rebirth, and the whole mass of suffering, despite their efforts. Let's now look at the second kind of person, the one who is practicing for the benefit of others, but not for their own benefit. As we said at the beginning of this session, this type of person is better than the one who practices neither for their own benefit or for the benefit of others. What's different according to the Raga Vinaya Sutta is this person encourages others to remove their lust, hatred, and delusion, but does not practice to remove their own lust, hatred, and delusion. In a nutshell, the Buddha is simply saying that this person is a do what I say, not what I do kind of person. This is also emphasized in the Sikkhapada Sutta, with this kind of person encouraging others to keep the 5 precepts, but not keeping them themselves. And in line with the Kipanisanti Sutta, we learn that this person has the qualities or characteristics to be of benefit to others. They are a good speaker with good delivery, gifted with speech that has qualities to convey the Dhamma and meaning, instructs, encourages, inspires, and gladdens others. However, similar to the first person we spoke of, they do not have the qualities or characteristics that would be of benefit to themselves. They are not quick to attend to wholesome teachings, they don't retain what they have heard, nor do they examine the meaning of what they have heard, and they're not able to practice in accordance with the Dhamma, having not understood the meaning and the Dhamma. So what is evident is that this kind of person most likely spends a lot of time speaking Dhamma, instructing and encouraging others towards Dhamma practice and progress, but falls far short on practicing for their own benefit. It could be said they talk the good talk, but don't walk the good walk. And what is also clear is there's possible defilements here, such as hypocrisy, deception, and most of all negligence. These kinds of things stem from wrong view, and will only reinforce wrong view over time. Wrong view in the sense of delusion that works together with greed to gain, and hatred because virtue is not there, and therefore there'll be aversion, and on it goes. This second kind of person the Buddha is referring to sounds similar to the one who is absorbed in communication, paññati bahulo. This is one who declares the Dhamma. We find reference to such a person in the Dhamma Vihari Suttas. These are in Anguttara Nikaya, Chapter 5, Discourses number 73 and 74. In these suttas, the Buddha refers to the one who is absorbed in communication as one who teaches the Dhamma to others in detail, as he has heard it and learned it, but he does not go further and understand its meaning with wisdom. He passes the day communicating the Dhamma, but neglects seclusion and does not devote himself to internal serenity of the mind. This is called one who frequently declares the Dhamma, not one who lives by the Dhamma. The contrast the Buddha gives in this reference is to the one who lives by the Dhamma, Dhammavihari. We will be looking closely at this sutta in a separate Dhamma session. Let's now look at the third kind of person, the one who is practicing for their own benefit and not for the benefit of others. The Buddha says that this person is the more excellent and sublime of the first three persons. So unlike the first two kinds of persons, the Buddha says that this person practices to remove their own lust, hatred and delusion, but does not encourage others to remove their lust, hatred and delusion. This is the Raga Vinaya Sutta. And they keep the 5 precepts, but don't encourage others to do so. So unlike the person who practices for the benefit of others, but not for themselves, this third kind of person has the qualities or characteristics that would be of benefit to themselves. So they are quick to attend to wholesome teachings, they retain what they have heard, they examine the meaning of what they have heard, and they're able to practice in accordance with the Dhamma, having understood the meaning and the Dhamma. However, similar to the first person we spoke of, they don't have the qualities or characteristics to be of benefit to others. They're not a good speaker with good delivery. They're not gifted with speech that has qualities to convey the Dhamma and the meaning. And they don't instruct, encourage, inspire, and gladden others. This is from the Kipanisanti Sutta. When we look at this third kind of person, whom the Buddha calls the more excellent and sublime of the first three persons, the question that comes to mind is, why are they considered better than the one who practices for the benefit of others? What is clear is, unlike the first two kinds of persons, this person has virtue. They're walking the true path of non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. They have depth in their understanding of the Dhamma and practice in accordance with that Dhamma that they have understood. They would certainly be a good example to others despite not being a good speaker, nor being able to directly instruct and encourage others. The Buddha does give another extended teaching on what it means to be practicing for one's own benefit in the Mahanama Sutta. This is Anguttara Nikaya, Chapter 8, Discourse number 25. Here the Buddha is asked a question by the layman Mahanama. In what way, Bhante, is a lay follower practicing for his own benefit, but not for the benefit of others? And the Buddha answers, when Mahanama, a lay follower, is himself accomplished in conviction, but does not encourage others to accomplish conviction. When he himself accomplished in virtuous behavior, but does not encourage others to accomplish virtuous behavior. When he himself accomplished in generosity, but does not encourage others to accomplish generosity. When he himself wants to see bhikkhus, but does not encourage others to see bhikkhus. When he himself wants to hear the true Dhamma, but does not encourage others to hear the true Dhamma. When he himself retains in mind the teachings he has heard, but does not encourage others to retain the teachings in mind. When he himself examines the meaning of the teachings that have been retained in mind, but does not encourage others to examine their meaning. When he himself has understood the meaning and the Dhamma, and practices in accordance with the Dhamma, but does not encourage others to do so. It is in this way, Mahanama, that a lay follower is practicing for his own benefit, but not for the benefit of others. What we can see here is the Buddha's emphasis of practicing these qualities and characteristics and making progress on the path for oneself, but not encouraging others to do the same in any of these ways. So that's pretty clear when it comes to practicing for one's own benefit and not for the benefit of others. And the fourth and last kind of person that the Buddha highlights is the one who is practicing both for their own benefit and for the benefit of others. The Buddha gives us this simile. Just as from a cow comes milk, from milk curd, from curd butter, from butter ghee, and from ghee cream of ghee, which is reckoned the foremost of all of these, so the person practicing both for their own benefit and for the benefit of others is the foremost, the best, the preeminent, the supreme, and the finest of these four persons. And we also see that this kind of person practices to remove their own lust, hatred, and delusion, and encourages others to remove their lust, hatred, and delusion. And this person also keeps the 5 precepts and encourages others to keep the 5 precepts. And they're endowed with all the qualities or characteristics outlined in the Kipanisanti Sutta that would benefit themselves and benefit others. So they're quick to attend to wholesome teachings, they retain what they have heard, they examine the meaning of what they have heard, they're able to practice in accordance with the Dhamma, having understood the meaning and the Dhamma. And they're a good speaker with good delivery, gifted with speech that has the qualities to convey the Dhamma and the meaning, and they instruct, encourage, and inspire and gladden others. So they tick all those boxes. If you remember, our penultimate frame of reference is the Buddha himself, followed by the noble Arahants, and then those who are following the Buddha's path with an intention towards Nibbana. If we now go to another sutta called the Sikkhapada Sutta, this is Anguttara Nikāya chapter 4, discourse number 201, we can see that this final category of person who practices for their own benefit and for the benefit of others can also be called a superior person, or Sappurusatara. Such a person, the Buddha says in this sutta, keeps the 5 precepts as well as encourages others to keep the 5 precepts. When we examine the 4 kinds of persons, it's evident why the 4th kind of person is the foremost, the best, the preeminent, the supreme, and the finest of these 4 persons. In the Dhammanya Sutta, Anguttara Nikāya chapter 7, discourse number 68, the Buddha expands on this when he compares the one who practices for their own benefit but not for others with the one who practices for both. The Buddha says, 2 persons who have understood the meaning and the Dhamma and then practice in accordance with the Dhamma, one is practicing for his own benefit but not for the benefit of others. One is practicing for his own benefit and for the benefit of others. The person who is practicing for his own benefit but not for the benefit of others is in that respect blameworthy. The one who is practicing for his own benefit and for the benefit of others is in that respect praiseworthy. So when you contemplate these words, there's something here for all of us to really reflect upon, an extra dimension as to how we cultivate our spiritual practice, and to consider why one is blameworthy and why one is praiseworthy. When you contemplate, it's important to recognize both types of persons understand the meaning and the Dhamma, and so are practicing in accordance with the Dhamma. But there is something that is not sparking for the person that doesn't share the Dhamma. If we now come back to the Mahanama Sutta, the next question the layman Mahanama asks the Buddha is, in what way, Bhante, is a lay follower practicing for his own benefit and for the benefit of others? And the Buddha this time answers, when Mahanama, a lay follower, is himself accomplished in conviction and also encourages others to accomplish conviction, when he himself accomplished in virtuous behavior and also encourages others to accomplish virtuous behavior, when he himself accomplished in generosity and also encourages others to accomplish generosity, when he himself wants to see bhikkhus and also encourages others to see bhikkhus, when he himself wants to hear true Dhamma and also encourages others to hear the true Dhamma, when he himself retains in mind the teachings he has heard and also encourages others to retain the teachings in mind, when he himself examines the meaning of the teachings that have been retained in mind and also encourages others to examine their meaning, when he himself understands the meaning and the Dhamma and then practices in accordance with the Dhamma and also encourages others to practice in accordance with the Dhamma. It is in this way, Mahanama, that a lay follower is practicing for his own benefit and also for the benefit of others. So we can see the importance the Buddha places on developing the wholesome qualities as well as developing one's spiritual practice correctly. And most of all, in order to be of benefit to others, to see the importance of encouraging others to do so as well. A really wonderful sutta that helps us to understand this 4th kind of person a little more and expand our definition of such a person is the Bahujanahita Sutta in Itivuttaka number 84. So this is one of the sayings of the Buddha. Here he says, bhikkhus, these 3 persons appearing in the world, appear for the benefit of many people, for the happiness of many people, out of compassion for the world, for the good, benefit, and happiness of devas and humans. What 3? Here, bhikkhus, a Tathagata appears in the world, an arahant, a fully enlightened one, possessing a perfect knowledge and conduct, a sublime one, a world knower, an unsurpassed leader of persons to be tamed, a teacher of devas and humans, an enlightened one, a lord. He teaches Dhamma that is good at the outset, good in the middle, and good at the end, with its correct meaning and wording, and he proclaims the spiritual life in its fulfillment and complete purity. This, bhikkhus, is the first person appearing in the world, who appears for the benefit of many people, for the happiness of many people, out of compassion for the world, for the good, benefit, and happiness of devas and humans. And then the second person that the Buddha talks about is the disciple of that teacher, an arahant, one whose taints are destroyed, the spiritual life fulfilled, who has done what had to be done, laid down the burden, attained the goal, destroyed the fetters of being, as is completely released through final knowledge. And so again, this person teaches the Dhamma that is good at the outset, and so on. So that's the second person that the Buddha refers to. And then the third person that the Buddha refers to next is, there is a disciple of that teacher, a learner or trainee, who is following the path, who has learnt much and is of virtuous conduct. He teaches the Dhamma that is good at the outset, and so on. And so that's the third kind of person who appears for the benefit of many. And then the Buddha says, the teacher, the great sage, is the first in the world. Following him is the disciple whose composure is perfected, so the arahant. And then the learner training on the path, one who has learnt much and is virtuous. These 3 are chief amongst devas and humans, illuminators, preaching Dhamma, opening the door to the deathless. They free many people from bondage, those who follow the path well taught by the unsurpassed caravan leader, who are diligent in the Sublime One's dispensation, make an end of suffering within this very life itself. And this is the crux of it. You have 3 people that fall into the category, appearing for the benefit of many, for the happiness of many people, out of compassion for the world, for the good, benefit, and happiness of devas and humans. This last category, the one that refers to learners or trainees, so seekas in Pali, this is most relevant to us. These are the ones who are following and developing the Noble Eightfold Path, who are seeking to become accomplished in the conduct and knowledge needed to fully develop the path, who teach, or who will be able to teach the Dhamma taught by the Buddha, the Dhamma that is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end, with the correct wording and meaning. Just like the Buddha and the perfected disciples, so the arahants, it's possible for learners or trainees to illuminate the Dhamma, to help people awaken, to explain the Buddha's teachings that will open the doors to Nibbana. These kinds of people can help many people to enter the stream, to develop further path and fruit, so that they are freed from the bondage of samsara and the whole mass of suffering. This is a noble and important part of spiritual practice. If one truly knows and sees the Dhamma, understands the noble truth of dukkha, has attained to the path, realized fruit of the path, then it is possible to show others how to do the same. When we have gratitude to the Buddha for showing us the way out of this cycle of birth and death and the whole mass of suffering, when there is compassion, true compassion for living beings, then there is no better way to help than to help people to understand the Buddha's teachings and how to practice those teachings, and therefore show them the way out of suffering. At the end of the day, for those who do see it, there is no other thing in the world more precious than being able to help oneself to be free of the lower realms and to help many other people to be free of the lower realms, to reduce the number of lifetimes of suffering for oneself and for others, to lean towards Nibbana and to encourage others to lean towards Nibbana, and ultimately to make a complete end of all suffering for oneself and to encourage others to do the same. So when we have Dhamma channels on YouTube and accept invitations to conduct Dhamma sessions, talks, and meditation retreats, this contributes towards helping others to free themselves from this bigger predicament, not just temporary suffering or difficulty. Anyone who helps with this process by way of technical support, offering to host an event, offering food, helping to serve, cook, print out materials, undertake the audio and video setup and editing, offering Zoom connections, cloud server hosting, Sutta research, transcribing talks, developing other tools, and so much more. So this is how we practice to be of benefit to others while also practicing to be of benefit to ourselves. There is certainly something here for all of us to contemplate, an extra dimension as to how we cultivate our spiritual practice to be considered. How can we serve? How can we support? How can we help? How can we share? How can we give? How can we teach? How can we save? The spiritual practice certainly becomes more joyful when you are practicing both for one's own benefit and for the benefit of others. Spiritual progress can be swifter and more easeful because there are blessings and fruit of practicing for both. Many things start to come together. We can now look at a few more suttas that correct misapprehensions about the merit of going forth, the Buddha's encouragement to teach the Dhamma, and the way it benefits ourselves and others. The first is from the Sangharava Sutta. This is Anguttara Nikaya chapter 3, discourse number 60. This is where a Brahmin comes to argue with the Buddha that one who sacrifices and encourages others to offer sacrifices are more meritorious than a person who goes forth from household life into homelessness, which he considers is solely for their own benefit. So the Buddha poses a question in response to the Brahmin's supposition. He says, "Well then, Brahmin, I will question you about this matter. You should answer as you see fit. What do you think, Brahmin? Here a Tathagata arises in the world, an Arahant, perfectly enlightened, accomplished in true knowledge and conduct, fortunate, knower of the world, unsurpassed trainer of persons to be tamed, teacher of devas and humans, an enlightened one, a blessed one. He says thus, 'Come, this is the path, this is the way. Practicing in accordance with it, I have realized for myself with direct knowledge the unsurpassed culmination of the spiritual life, and make it known to others. Come, you too, practice thus. Practicing in accordance with it, you too will realize for yourselves with direct knowledge the unsurpassed culmination of the spiritual life, and dwell in it.' Thus, the teacher teaches this Dhamma, and others practice accordingly. There are many hundreds, many thousands, many hundreds of thousands who do so. What do you think? When this is the case, is the act of going forth a meritorious practice that extends to one person or to many people?" And then the Brahmin answers, "When that is the case, Master Gautama, this is a meritorious practice that extends to many people, that is, one based on going forth." So we see, even the convention that the Buddha has set up for going forth is a meritorious one. When people say that it is selfish or only for one's own benefit, that is not true. It is one that benefits many people and not just the person who has gone forth. There is also a collection of suttas on the same topic of how our spiritual practice can be of benefit to ourselves, others, neither or both, from Balavagga, or the chapter on powers in chapter 5 of the Anguttara Nikaya. In his teaching to the bhikkhus, the Buddha references 5 qualities which are accomplished in virtuous behavior, sila sampanno, accomplished in concentration, samadhi sampanno, accomplished in wisdom, panya sampanno, accomplished in liberation, vimutti sampanno, and accomplished in knowledge and vision of liberation, vimutti jnana dassana sampanno. If you remember from our study of the Mahasarvapama Sutta, so the simile of the heartwood, then you will recognize these qualities as the higher training of adhisila, adhichitta, adhipanya, which culminates in liberation and the knowledge and vision of liberation. All are the fruits of spiritual practice that is part of higher training on the supramundane Noble Eightfold Path. When we break down the Buddha's words, we see a similar thread to the earlier suttas we went through. Whether we practice to develop the wholesome qualities and whether we encourage others to do so as well. The 4 suttas can be summarized into a table. Again, we see that if one is not accomplished in these qualities and does not encourage others to become accomplished in these qualities, then that person is practicing neither for their own benefit nor for the benefit of others. And if they are not accomplished in these qualities, but do encourage others to become accomplished in these qualities, then the Buddha says such a person is practicing for the benefit of others, but not for their own benefit. And if they are accomplished in these qualities, but do not encourage others to become accomplished in these qualities, then the Buddha says such a person is practicing for their own benefit, but not for the benefit of others. And finally, if they are accomplished in these qualities and encourage others to become accomplished in these qualities, then the Buddha says such a person is practicing both for their own benefit and for the benefit of others. So in this set of suttas, the Buddha is teaching the bhikkhus, but it is equally applicable to lay people who are developing the supramundane Noble Eightfold Path, to train in these higher trainings and to develop the fruit of the spiritual practice, but also to encourage others in the same. There are many good examples or role models that we can follow in order to see someone who is practicing both for the benefit of others as well as for the benefit of themselves. But today let's look at the good example of Venerable Mahakassapa, who the Buddha praised even in old age for practicing for the welfare of many, out of compassion for the world and for the good welfare and happiness of devas and humans. Out of compassion for later generations, Venerable Mahakassapa thought, "May those of later generations follow my example, for when they hear the enlightened disciples of the Buddha were long-time forest dwellers, alms food eaters, rag robe wearers, triple robe users, having few wishes, being content, being secluded, being aloof from society, and being energetic, and spoke in praise of all those qualities, they will practice accordingly, and that will lead to their welfare and happiness for a long time." And so even in old age, Venerable Mahakassapa maintained his practices for his own pleasant dwelling in this very life and out of compassion for later generations. So this is very inspiring for those who have gone forth, because Venerable Mahakassapa is an exemplary role model of one who practices both for their own benefit but also for the benefit of others. And from a lay practice perspective, it is also very inspiring because it reminds us to be good role models, even leading the lay spiritual life, so that other lay people may benefit from our example. This is why it is good to reflect on certain actions and whether it sets a good example or not. So for example, if one is developing the Noble Eightfold Path, it's important not to indulge in frivolous speech or empty speech, to genuinely demonstrate that. Also, if one truly sees the danger in sensual pleasures, then even as a layperson, even though it is possible for us to indulge, it is good to cultivate a lifestyle that is content with less, happy to live simply, and to see the benefit of not indulging in sensual pleasures, and for others to see that genuinely grow and develop in one's spiritual practice. When we look at Venerable Mahakassapa, he sets a good example of showing the spiritual life and the blessings of the spiritual life, that one can be happy with less. It is good when we start cultivating the spiritual life as the Dhamma sets in, as wisdom starts to grow and the spiritual faculties start to sharpen and the path starts coming together. It becomes important to reflect on our actions through body, speech and mind, to ensure that we are setting the right example, that we are not indulging where we're not meant to be indulging. And the true thing behind this is the authenticity of actually practicing in this way. So when it comes to Venerable Mahakassapa, he genuinely found the pleasant dwelling in this very life, being a rag robe wearer, being an alms food eater, dwelling in the forest, having few wishes, being content, all those different qualities. So when this becomes true, even in the way of lay practice, then it's good to demonstrate that in an authentic way. And then other lay people who are following the Buddha's path get inspired, they get gladdened, they say this is possible, they see that there is true happiness in it. And the final sutta we can refer to is the Dutiya Marapasa Sutta. This is in Samyutta Nikaya chapter 4, discourse number 5. And this is where the Buddha is talking to the bhikkhus about Mara's snare. And what he says is, "Bhikkhus, I am freed from all snares, both celestial and human. You too, bhikkhus, are freed from all snares, both celestial and human. Wander forth, O bhikkhus, for the benefit of the multitude, for the happiness of the multitude. out of compassion for the world, for the good benefit and happiness of devas and humans. Let not two go the same way. Bhikkhus, teach the Dhamma that is good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, with the right meaning and phrasing. Reveal the perfectly complete and purified spiritual life. There are beings with little dust in their eyes who are falling away because they do not hear the Dhamma. There will be those who will understand the Dhamma. I too, bhikkhus, will go to Senanigama in Uruvela in order to teach the Dhamma. It is for the benefit of many, for the happiness of many, out of compassion for the world, that we are encouraged by the Buddha to teach the Dhamma, for the good, benefit or welfare and happiness of devas and humans. The Dhamma that the Buddha specifically refers to is that which is good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, and with the right meaning and phrasing. The closer we stick to the Buddha's words, phrasing, instructions, insight or knowledge pathways, and are able to convey the true meaning, the better it is. This means not straying off course from the Buddha's teachings, not inventing our own stuff, not butchering the Buddha's teachings and mixing it with other teachings. Instead, it's critically important for each of us to follow the Buddha's learning system, which he summarized as retaining the Dhamma in mind, examining the meaning of the Dhamma that has been retained in mind, and applying effort to understand the meaning and the Dhamma, and practicing in accordance with the Dhamma. So in this way, because we are truly living by the Dhamma, Dhamma Vihari in Pali, then it becomes possible to realize and practice the true Dhamma and encourage others in the same. This is what would be of benefit to ourselves and to others. And those with little dust in their eyes are those in the world that still have some conviction, saddha, in the Buddha. Such people, when they hear the Dhamma, won't fall away. They won't be destined for lower realms. It's easy to turn away from the Buddha's encouragement to teach, even when one has attainments. Mara whispers in one's ear, it's too hard, the world is too imbued, people won't understand, people won't be interested, the numbers will be small, it's better to stay in solitude, it's better to focus on oneself, and so on. But, and this is a big but, even if there's one person with a little dust in their eyes, then there is the opportunity and potential for that person to enter the stream. Then what we must do is to help that person. Unfortunately, many of us may not have the Buddha's ability to see who is ready, but what we can respond to is to invitations, requests, people who want to hear the Buddha's words explained, so people can meditate, they can make progress towards an end to this whole mass of suffering. The one that comes to mind is Brahmasahampati. He was the one who reminded the Buddha and to make the invitation to teach. It's important for us to remember that if Brahmasahampati did not invite the Buddha to teach, then we would not have been able to hear the Buddha's teachings and not be able to practice in accordance with those teachings. So when the time comes, or if it is here already, and we are invited to teach and share Dhamma for the benefit of many, we must do so diligently, wisely, and with true respect to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. In this way, the spiritual life is practiced, developed, shared, beneficial, and will eventually be completely fulfilled and purified with the unshakable deliverance of the mind. In Pali, this is Akuppa Ceto Vimutti. We've now come to the end of our session. We can share the merit with all sentient beings. May all beings be happy and well. May all beings be free from suffering. Blessings of the Triple Gem, wishing you well. Teruvan Saranai.